And when I came in, of course, there's going to be people that are happy, people that are not happy. There's no situation where everyone's happy. Just have to be very clear about the changes that are coming, when it's going to come, what's going to change, and then just kind of over communicate that. You can't please everyone. There's going to be some people who just don't want to change, and
Mhm.
if they'll leave on their own, or you have to get them out.
Guest today is the President and Chief Product Officer of Kajabi, Sean Kim. Kajabi is the leading platform for knowledge entrepreneurs and creators. Previously, Sean was the head of product at Tik-TOK, where he set the strategic direction and led teams responsible for developing and growing the company's product. Prior to Tik-TOK, Sean was the global head of product at Amazon Prime, where he played an instrumental role in driving customer retention for Prime membership. Sean, welcome to the Second Command podcast.
Thank you for having me. Glad to be here.
There was someone who used to be at Amazon Prime, Anna. She was like the head of Amazon Prime at one time. Do you know who that might have been? She ended up going over to Bulletproof.
Yeah, I do know her. Yes, that's right.
Yeah, she was one of the very early guests on the podcast a bunch of years ago. I helped recruit her away from Amazon to go to work for Bulletproof Coffee.
Okay.
Tell me about that as part of your career and going from Amazon. What was that like? What kind of skills did you pull from there? And then we'll go into a little bit about TikTok. And then I really want to focus around what you're doing with Kajabi.
Amazon was probably one of the best companies I've ever worked for in the past. I really learned what it meant to be customer obsessed and ensuring that customers were first and foremost the most important reason why you make any decisions in business. Throughout that experience, I've been able to see how a company can really make a difference and have positive impact in the customers' lives. Revenue was not part of this discussion at the beginning. It's always like, hey, what's the best way to ensure you're providing the most amazing customer experience, and the work backwards from there. That was very different thinking prior to joining Amazon. Like that was not how any of the companies I've worked at, approach business. It was just a really an amazing experience. I think one of the reasons why I got excited by joining Amazon was way back in the day when they launched the Fire tablet. I remember seeing a commercial about it, and I saw a customer clicking a button and having the chat agent appear on the screen to then onboard the customer, walk through how to use the product and answer any questions. And I thought to myself, like, wow, like the companies that I was at before would never launch that. That's just not scalable, right? It's an amazing experience, but that's just not scalable, right? That was like kind of a moment when I realized this is an amazing company that I want to work for. And since then, I had an amazing time. I learned a lot about how to run a subscription business, how to go and market with devices, very metrics driven approach, working with some of the best leaders in the world. So it was just an overall amazing experience.
So why would you have left Amazon to go to probably more of a startup at TikTok, right?
I wasn't looking to leave. I mean, I had built such great trust with my leadership and got promoted and so on. And so it wasn't something any proactive. Someone had reached out from TikTok and said, hey, we have this really amazing opportunity. It was actually initially for a head of marketing role. And I was like, well, I'm not in marketing. I don't even know what TikTok is. So I downloaded the app, opened it, and started playing with it. And I was like, I saw a bunch of kids dancing, lip syncing. I thought, like, why the intro me to this company? I did not understand the utility or value behind it. Well, what are you solving, right? So that's kind of like how I've trained to think being an Amazon is like solve a big, meaty customer problem. I just did not understand it. I don't think this is the right company for me. And then a few days later, the founder, Alex Zhu, called me and was like, hey, let's talk about this opportunity. What do you like, dislike? And I'm like, well, first of all, I'm not marketing. I'm in the product. And he's like, well, we can make it happen. And so let's just come to LA, have a conversation with me. So I flew down, met with him, and he said, Sean, like the content, this is something that we're going to work on, but we have figured out something that no other company has figured out yet, or they're not very good at it, which is discovery. And that was the magic word for me. It's like discovery. He was like, yeah, so we got discovery down, which means that we can help people discover where to travel, what to eat, what books to read, what movies to watch, what's the latest fashion trend. I mean, the possibilities were endless.
Yeah.
And that's when I got really excited about it. I was like, wow, I mean, if you figure that out, there's a lot of different ways we can go push this. And then he also mentioned like short form video is the way people will consume information in the future. Guaranteed.
Yep.
So, so when I heard that, I was like, hey, this is super exciting. And of course, the natural question I came up with is like, hey, so are you going to launch e-commerce? And he was like, check this out. And he opens a version of the app, like this, by the way, 3 years ago, that had e-commerce enabled already. And there was someone in the video that was, just walking, and you could click on her clothes and immediately show that, show that product and be able to purchase it right there on the spot. I was like, oh, wow, this is cool. And so that got me really, really excited. And like, now I thought like, well, then place to travel, what do you eat? I mean, what movies to watch? Like, you enable that last mile experience within that app, you enable e-commerce for anything. So
How many people were at TikTok when you joined, and what was that culture shift like moving from an Amazon to there then?
yeah, I mean, so I'm trying to think. When I joined, I think maybe at the LA office or maybe at over 100.
Okay.
Not a lot.
That's about the same size as we're like, in the Amazon bathroom.
What? Yeah, yeah.
It's a completely different culture.
Completely different culture, very startup. I mean, I remember walking in to the office. By the way, this is at rental office called Spaces. Walked in and asked, like, hey, where do I sit? And I remember the IT guy just looking around and just like clearing some computers from this like desk area. Said, just sit here. Right? Stuff like, okay, well, all right. I'm definitely gonna start up, right? So they didn't have anything set for me to shut up. I just kind of like sat down, and then he brought me a monitor and so on. So like, wow, this is super startup experience. But I looked at it, it was like this one massive room with like everybody in it, and I could see with everybody at the same time. It's a lot of collaboration and a lot of excitement at the company. Culture wise, yeah, I mean, like it was super young. Everyone was super scrappy, like working late. Obviously, we had to work with our counterparts in China as well. So it was, at the time, like it was not a well-known company. One of the things I'm kind of proud of that I brought from Amazon was doc writing. So writing documents or product strategy and, business strategy overall. And because it was previously just all PowerPoint, I was like, no, we're going to do docs going forward. And brought that to the company there, and then continue to push that for like everything, like for across different teams as well as at ByteDance. So that's like now accepted way of doing business there. So
Walk us through what that means. What is the doc writing culture? Is it kind of like submit a one pager with what you're going to be doing and why, like the who, what, when, why, and how, or what is it?
yeah, I mean, it kind of depends on the purpose of the doc, but product strategy, for instance, will have what is the customer problem you're trying to solve for, how big of a problem this is, how many people have this problem, for instance, and then we'll have a solution in the doc along with what are the risks that come with that solution, what's the cost to the business, what is the MVP approach, phased approach, phase 1, 2, 3, timeline for that, what are some asks from the leadership team. So it goes into detail that helps us ensure that we're making the best decision about what we're going to make.
I've created something similar called the decision filter, where I look at the cost of inaction and the cost, like what's the benefit of doing it, what's the ROI against our people, time, and money. But I need to go in and take a look at the Amazon doc process a little deeper. I like it. Was there any push back against that change of culture when you were bringing something in, and how did you kind of socialize that when you were bringing that system into TikTok?
Yeah, I mean, I think there's some pushback from certain people, but generally was like widely adopted, accepted. I think the founder of ByteDance, Ming, really had a lot of, I guess, had a fascination for Amazon. He talked about Amazon all the time and said, look how successful they were there. Like, look how they set their leadership principles, really admired that company. So he, would actually, when I met with him, he would ask about Amazon, say how they work there, how do they operate, so on. And so when I brought the doc culture and I wrote some pointers down in terms of how doc should be structured, will she include this docs, how you should write. I remember he actually took that, shared it across the company. So
that makes a lot of sense, because they were already really bought into that whole culture. That wasn't something that they were going to be pushing back against. They were trying to bring more of that in. What do you think some of the skills were that you pulled then out of TikTok that you carried with you over to Kajabi today then?
TikTok, man, they they work fast. They're fast. Fast, fast, fast. So it's interesting, like how how fast they are. So one of the things I brought in from there was definitely the sense of urgency, and being able to test something quickly, fail fast, right, and move on. And if there's something that works really well, then just like immediately double down, just like boom, like put the resources behind and shift resources immediately, however you see fit, to make sure that you double down on success. When it comes to competitors, like they really do a number on competitors. Like anytime they feel like there's a competitor that's getting any kind of traction, they will make sure that they are not getting traction, whether it's like outspending them, or building products around whatever made that competitor successful, building similar products, right? And they had the reach and the deep pockets to make sure that they were the leader in that kind of space. So
It's interesting. You often hear people talking about the competitors to either obsess about them or to ignore them, right? Andy Grove is like only the paranoid survive. Was TikTok playing with both thighs? Were they looking at what the competitors were doing and then also really driving ahead with their own vision as well? Or were they obsessed in one direction more than the other, do you think?
we need both. Like every business review, there was a full section on everything our competitors are doing. We had information about their DAU retention. We had the latest product releases. We estimated their product release adoption. We had anecdotal data. Like, I was like, wow, how did you give us all this information? But yeah, there's a whole section dedicated. And then we go into our four metrics and what are we doing. It was definitely for something that we looked at very often.
Okay, so then you flip over from TikTok over to Kajabi. How many years has Kajabi been in business? Certainly a fantastic brand. Is it 5 years old, 10 years old?
A little over 10 years old. Yeah. Okay.
So a little over 10 years old. It was more of a, is it a mature company? How many employees were there when you got there?
So when I got here, we had, I think, like, including employees in the Philippines, I think we're like a little over 300.
Okay.
And it hasn't changed a lot. Like we haven't gone crazy and hired a ton of people. We're very cautious and responsible about how we've been hiring.
It also feels like the kind of platform that you've probably hit scale now that you don't need to add a whole bunch of people either if you can stay cautious and stay focused. Is that true?
Yeah. I'd say like everyone on our teams are stacked and working at max capacity, which is the way it should be, right? So I think like there's always room for more work and room for people to get, more people to come in. But I think we are very cautious about how we hire. We want to make sure that the current person is like completely stacked before we hire the next person, and then make sure that the next person has like lots of work ahead of them. So,
all right. So you're the first guest in about 245 guests that I've had on this podcast that has mentioned that in terms of stacking and people working at max capacity. And I've always believed that as well, that it's kind of like, the athlete that finishes the whatever race that they're in or event that they're in, they always have more fuel in the tank at the end of the race, right? You rarely see the marathoner collapse at the finish line and fucking get hauled off to hospital and win at the same time. So how do you know if people are operating at that max capacity, and how do you get people to wrap their heads around the fact that we need to get more done with less people faster, right? We need to be more efficient.
Not everyone would agree with me, but so like my team will tell me directly, be like, hey, like I'm busy. Like I could see from like their roadmap and all the initiatives that we have going on, and we're very transparent about all the work that is on our plate for all engineers and all the PMs. And just having been a PM, I know what it takes to have like multiple complex initiatives going on, working with like, hundreds of engineers. So, when someone says they're busy, we have this roadmap feeling that they say, yeah, you're pretty busy. And so like I need to be able to have another PM, for instance, so that I can move faster. And we do that estimation and say, okay, if you have another PM, you can get this done half the time, whatever, like, or watch this faster, whatever. Right? So I think that's where we do that calculation. So, okay, let's do the lineage of it.
And I like that you do go back to the roadmap. So you're looking at exactly what's on their plate, specifically what they're working on over the next, how long? Month, 3 months, week, month?
We can project out what we want to build for the rest of the year, right? So we can see like all of 2023. Of course, it will be exactly what we expect. Like some things won't work, with a pivot quickly. Some things will work really well. We double down. We have a pretty robust planning process where we think they're one of the core meaty customer problems we can solve for, what takes the most time for customers, where's the most friction, what helps customers become more successful, reach their audience. So we ask these questions for ourselves and then come up with these product strategies. And typically the meatier the problem, the more complex the solution easily, and requires a lot more engineers. So we have this really good, robust planning process and being able to predict out the impact of the initiative. So we have like an impact estimation calculated based on like the improvement to like conversion, activation, retention, and when you launch it to see incremental customers will save or retain or whatever it might be. And so we have the impact calculator, we have high level estimations from engineering so that we can and we know exactly how many engineers are on the certain teams that can estimate out like what we can launch with our quarter, half year, rest of the year.
And what's the impact calculator?
Yeah. So that's something I actually brought from Amazon as well. But the impact calculator can forecast essentially how many customers we can acquire as well as convert and retain based on historical data about some products we've launched in the past in a certain location, for instance, within the app, wherever it might be. And then we look at that and say, hey, this is how a certain product has improved retention, and this is how many people we can influence. So if we launched a product in this space, we estimate that we can improve retention by 1%, 2%. If we launch it in January, you can predict out how many people will save. We have different versions of this impact calculator, depending on where the product is launched, whether it's like in the front door or the back door, the subscription service. We work with the FinOps team, kind of build that out, model it out, and then we got pretty good at predicting impact for products. So at Amazon, we launched this thing we were able to predict down to like 5 bits in terms of how many Prime members we would save.
Wow.
We got really good at it.
So you also mentioned something about the hiring more and being cautious with hiring people. It feels like when companies are smaller, kind of in the 50 to 100 range, and they really have their first management or leadership team that doesn't really have the skills yet, that their answer to every problem is hire more people. How do you prevent that from happening? How do you grow their skills so they understand that it's not always hiring more people, that maybe it's, becoming more optimized or automated or saying no more? How do you grow those people so that they understand that?
Throughout my career, we've been really good at ruthlessly prioritizing initiatives. So we don't stretch ourselves thin, and we focus our efforts on the most impactful initiatives. So someone says hey, I'm really busy. I don't know what's going on. What are we working on? I have these 5 initiatives. I'm like, well, how important are these 5? That will stack rank and say, if you didn't do these 2, what would happen? It's like nothing. Not really. Well, then don't do it, right? Just focus on these 3. And then of these 3, which one is most impactful? Which one, had the highest impact with the lowest amount of engineering work required, right? So I think we kind of do this exercise and we prioritize the time and effort put in to ensure that people are focused on the most impactful things.
And that is kind of when coaching meets alignment, right? When you're just trying to align their efforts with what the results are going to be or whatever your outputs you're looking for. So
right.
Tell us a little bit about Kajabi. Because I'm sure there's a few people out there that haven't heard, even though you've got a fairly big user base.
Yeah, so Kajabi is the easiest way to build an all-in business around what you know. So we are an all-in-one solution that helps creators, market publishers sell their digital content, such as podcasts, video courses, newsletters, even coaching, live stream coaching. We have around 60,000 customers, and they have made $4.1 billion to date with an annual run rate of $1.7 billion. So they're doing quite well. We have a few creators that have made over $100 million. So these are really big, legit businesses that we've been able to scale with. Creators that joined in 2022 have earned 20% more than those that have joined in 2021, 2020. So the product and services have been getting better to make it easier to reach their audience, retain them, and earn money. So yeah, the company's been around for about a little over 10 years and did quite well.
What was the reason for you to join Kajabi? What was the reason for you to flip from TikTok over to Kajabi? And I want to focus more on not why you left TikTok, but what was it that got you to join Kajabi?
So when I was at TikTok, I definitely grew fond of the creators I would work with, and grew a lot, grew a lot of admiration for the work that goes into becoming a creator. And having worked with a lot of the creators at TikTok, and one of the things that kept coming up was not being able to monetize properly as a creator. And, because you become a creator in the beginning, it's more about social credit, like all likes, comments, shares, views, and followers, and follower count. But then you realize you're putting in like 4 hours a day, 6 hours a day to creating content. And then you realize, well, I gotta monetize my time. I can't be like just doing this for likes and likes and followers. So we got a lot of feedback from us at TikTok about helping them monetize. And we tried a lot of different things there. We launched $1 billion creator fund. We launched tipping on profile page, gifting videos, live stream, gifting, a lot of different things to try and help creators build a living, earn like meaningful income. But I would say that it wasn't incredibly successful. You couldn't quit your day job full time. You had to rely on brand deals, and brand deals are not always consistent, and you can't really decide exactly what you want to create. Then, the recession, those brand deals are kind of drying up. I've talked to my team at the time and said, who's doing really well? Who's doing creator monetization really well? Let's look at some of the competitors. Let's look at some of the startups. We looked at competitors. They weren't doing it very well either.
Yep.
So we looked at startup. Sure enough, Kajabi came up number one. Kajabi, the numbers at the time were like, oh yeah, $3.5 billion made to date, 50 something thousand creators. I'm like, what? How is that even possible? So I started researching the business. Met with some of the people, and hey, I told my team, let's just go copy them, figure out what they're doing off of that to TikTok creators. And then we did the research and realized, yeah, you can't really copy what they're offering. You can't, those social media companies cannot, provide their creators all the email addresses and be able to just like own that audience and take them off platform and allow them to, control their business end to end. Right. So they would keep them all on platform, because of bad revenue and so on. But, meeting with the Kajabi team, meeting with the leadership team, came to realize, wow, you guys have an amazing business. This is such a awesome thing you're doing for creators in terms of empowering them to build meaningful businesses. And coincidentally, I actually found a job at the time. I thought to myself, like, this is a once in a lifetime opportunity to really help people build incredible businesses and change people's lives. I mean, I hear it time and time again, and people like join Kajabi, build a business, and they have complete personal freedom. They're able to retire, and they're able to pay for their kids' education, college, their family, literally changing people's lives.
Yeah, it's interesting.
Yeah, and that's why I thought, like, okay, this is the time to join.
So you said something that I'd never actually considered before, which is intriguing, that you actually do give them the contact information for their clients, their course users or whatever, and they are able to take that and monetize it off the platform, and you don't care about it or worry about that. I guess, is that because they're paying a monthly fee and that if they can monetize it elsewhere, that yours is lead gen for them, they're going to keep paying for? Or
so Kajabi offers, we offer the since it's an all-in-one solution, we offer our customers ability to build landing pages, funnels, collect email, nurture them to becoming a paid customer. And for the courses or podcasts or coaching alerted by B, these customers are signing up to be part of the mailing list for our customers.
mm-hmm.
Yeah, so that's essentially how their business runs. It's like, hey, join my mailing list so I can give you a preview of what type of content I offer, and then they eventually become a payment.
Okay, so one of the things that seems to happen when companies get to be your size, especially when they're a SaaS business, is that there's almost like feature creep or past features, even like just other markets you can get into or other services you can start bundling in, and then it becomes this big, huge, massive thing that no one's using or just gets complicated, right? Like Confusionsoft or How do you as a company say no to the opportunities of what you could be bundling and building in? Like you're not a funnel software now. You're not trying to compete with email marketing services. How do you say no to all the things you could be and say yes and stay focused on the things that you are?
We talk to customers on a regular basis. I require our team to do that as well. We have a lot of survey data. We also, of course, have our own internal metrics in terms of what's been most successful in terms of helping our customers become successful, and what is the product that's most utilized and has the best chance of helping customers succeed. We shift a lot of our the focus as well as resources to ensure that we're constantly improving that product, and then thinking about how we can take this to the next level. So, hey, what can we do to make sure that we're saving them even more time, removing even more friction points on the way? So when we have this conversation with customers, we talk through what are the steps you're taking to actually build this business, offer this product. And they said, here's where I spend most of my time, X, Y, and Z. And say, okay, well, how do I make that 10 hours into like 5 minutes? Right. So that's essentially where we're kind of shifting that time. And then we ship a lot of the resources, and part of that doesn't give us a lot of room to do other things.
So I understand at the leadership team level how you say that and how you make those decisions to stay focused and to say no. How do you say no to the employees who are coming to you with the ideas? And how do you say no to the customers that are coming to you ideas where it's like it's either a great idea but no, or it's a great idea but not now, without killing their spirit and energy? Like it's kind of like Gen Y Z, they all want their 9th place participation ribbons.
I help to come to the same conclusion on their own. And that's through the product strategy doc. We say, well, let's do the work and figure out how impactful this thing's going to be. And they'll go through and do the customer problem validation and how many people have the problem, and the impact calculator realize like, oh, it's not very impactful. So they'll come to that same conclusion, hopefully, and come to me and say, hey, this isn't going to be very impactful. If I spend these 8 hours a day working on this, I'll have way more impact. And then this is something that's a nice to have. This other thing's a nice to have. It could go later. So.
I like that. And is that, again, the tool that you were using at Amazon, or is that kind of impact calculator a tool that is from Kajabi?
Well, yeah. So we first built that at Amazon, and then I brought it to TIK-TOK, and I also brought it to Kajabi. So it's just, and it just gets more accurate over time. So the first version of this, like, we won't have enough data to feed it, but like over time, we'll have launched a lot of products. We'll have estimations in terms of what the heck would have been versus actuals, and say, oh no, okay, now we know. After we feed more data into this calculator, it just gets more and more accurate over time.
Okay, so I understand why you joined them and how the fit is. Why do you think they came and picked you? I mean, they've got a good team, they've got some good employees, they've got product market fit already, and now they're bringing this guy in from another company over top of all this existing team. So why did they pick you? And then how did you enter into the company without upsetting everybody that's there that didn't get your job or that now reports to you?
Yeah, I think like they want to become a more product-driven organization, seeing how wildly successful TikTok has been in the products of that the company has launched. I think they wanted some of that magic. Say, hey, what are you doing in TikTok to make it so successful? How was it so successful within such a short time? And so I think like that definitely did help for sure. I think like also a background at Amazon with Amazon Prime being a subscription business, that also was a big factor as well. So I think like just my product experience was I think probably core to decision making in terms of getting me in the door. So yeah, when I came in, of course, not, there's going to be people that are happy, people that are not happy. There's no situation where everyone's happy. And, I just have to be very clear about the changes that are coming, when it's going to come, what's going to change, and then just try to over communicate that. And you can't please everyone. There's some people they just don't want to change, and they'll leave on their own, or you have to get them out.
Okay. And then how about you and the CEO? So you've got was it a founding CEO or was it a hired gun CEO that you're then working with?
So I was the CFO/COO prior to me joining. And then he recently became the CEO. And
Okay.
they hired me as the president and CTO.
Okay. How did the two of you kind of divide and conquer and split up roles and responsibilities? And then how do you keep those communication channels clean with everybody else in the organization as well as to who goes to who?
Yeah. So I report to Hod, and we divvied up the responses based on what we're really good at. I was, really good at product and know how to oversee engineering and so on. So I had product engineering as well as design. And then we also put customer service on my team. With customer service, we can really help influence some of the prospect launch because they're very close to the customer. We get the voice of the customer on a regular basis. We made a lot of adjustments in terms of being more transparent and surfacing that voice of customer information to all the teams at Kajabi. So we have monthly meetings now to see what are customers saying, where are most tickets coming from, what are the issues that can also help prioritize our roadmap. The adjustments has been made with our customer service team, product engineering team, and design team. And then the people that report to us directly are like marketing, FinOps, accounting, legal, and so on.
I like it. All right. How about your skill set? I mean, you're clearly, involved in an organization that's still scaling, still growing. It's got huge upside in front of it. And I think every day, in our jobs, it's kind of like, this is the biggest thing we've ever done, right? So where are you focusing on growing your skill sets right now as a leader?
I definitely want to continue growing in terms of being inspirational. But I think I would say I'm fairly demanding in terms of what expectations and driving urgency and timelines. But I think there's also being inspirational, and that's an important quality to have. So that's something I want to work on as well. Learning more about the legal components as well. I mean, I get fascinated about legal. It's so unique, and usually me and legal have a love-hate relationship. I love them, they hate me. So, it's just understanding all the nuances and what's possible. And it's just one of those areas that just I'm continually trying to learn more about.
That's cool. I like it. All right. I want to go back to the 21, 22-year-old Sean Kim. You're just getting started in your career. What advice would you give yourself that maybe to be true today, but you wish you'd known back then?
I would say spend the time to figure out what you're passionate about. And just, I think you lose it over time and be like, hey, this job pays better, or this is like the hot new thing to work on. Just stop this space or go to the company. But I think that if you just focus on what you're really passionate about, and not care what the money and all those things you're at, I think all that will come later, and all that will follow. But I think that's something that's really, really important.
It's funny. I love that because one of the things I've noticed the whole time we're talking, anybody who's kind of watching this video on YouTube, if you're listening, you can't see it, but when you're watching, you can. Behind you is all of these design things. You everything is kind of design. And I kept looking at stuff like a plant in your chair. I don't know what that is behind you on the desk, something made out of wood, your guitar in the background. You clearly have a love for design, and the fact that you oversee product and design just kind of makes sense as well. So you're clearly in a niche that you love. Sean Kim, President and Chief Product Officer for Kajabi. Thanks very much for sharing with us on the Second Command podcast.
Yeah, thank you for having me.
Really appreciate it.
I think when you're young, you just kind of think the world's ahead of you and you know better than everybody, and you're about to just embark on this crazy, awesome career. I wish I would have sought out more mentorship, proactively, and done it earlier and in a much more meaningful way, just because of the impact it's made on me and my career.